Ahoy.
Oh, yeah.
This is Kyle and that's Grant.
Nick,
Good pleasure to meet you.
welcome aboard.
Come in, Grant.
Spot
So
somewhere.
we're to see you guys. Right
No, I
here.
mean, no.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'll sit right here.
Okay, thank you. We are live on YouTube, and this is a different kind of a gathering. We've got an objective just to be able to sit with some orientation today. And so we wanna move through a couple of documents. One would be around a PowerPoint that provides a bit of an overview, but I suspect we're gonna wanna spend most of our time around the other document, which is kind of a mock hearing script for David, for the chair, if that sounds good. Let's do quick introductions. Why don't we start on YouTube? Erin, we'll start with you.
I'm Erin, and I am a resident of West Salem.
Thank you. And Mel.
Yep.
Mel Gregg, resident of Salem South.
Thank you. And Celine.
Celine Coleman, resident of North Salem.
Thank you. And Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Infante, I'm a resident of South Salem.
Thank you.
I'm Kyle, Grant neighborhood.
I'm Grant, not the Kyle neighborhood. I'm over Morningside.
I'm Nathan. I'm legal counsel for the board here today. I live in Campbell County.
I'm David Reinhold, board chair and resident of Polk County.
Very good. And Gretchen, staff to the board. It's great to have all of you. I thought what I'd try to do is click kind of quickly through the orientation slides, if that sounds good, but invite folks to pause me at any moment. I think some of you have been on for a bit, and so it's going to feel repetitive. And so I want to make sure we cover it, but get most of your time for the mock hearing format, since that's what's coming up pretty soon. How does that sound?
Good, thank you.
Great. And any questions before we jump in?
I'm good.
All right. Let's see if I can figure out how to share the screen. All right. Those of you on YouTube, can you now see the PowerPoint? Mel said yes. Okay, great. You know that the board has 7 regular members, but 2 alternate members. So that's kind of interesting. Grant, we're going to tap you as a regular member coming up for our case review. I regret to let you know that Ryan needed to resign suddenly for personal reasons. And so that opens that. And so Grant will have you serve as a regular member.
I'll be there.
Yeah, good. Good. And of course, your broad objective is around an accessible, objective process for reviewing unresolved complaints. So we have one of those coming right up, as you're aware. And you're also able to contribute in on policies and procedures. You're listening to the complaint summaries and trends, and you're offering perspective as well in that. Oh, all I had to do was click it. I was like, where's the little arrow? Let's move it. A little bit about how mayor and council goes about thinking about who to appoint when applying. And your requirements include orientation, just like this evening, having 2 ride-alongs per year, making sure we're following all the applicable ethics rules, and I know you're sent a packet when you're at your appointment from the mayor's office, paying attention to that. Confidentiality, when it does come up, we do most of our work in a public setting, but when it does come up, to be conscious of that. Of course.
With the requirement of having 1 ride along before a hearing, do we have enough members that have done that?
We do. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We've been chasing that to make sure. Yes. Thank you. As well as we have everyone's oath in. Thank you all for making sure you got that notarized oath and confidentiality as well.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Attending at least 75% of meetings and proper decorum. There is an opportunity to receive confidential information. We might know that as it comes up. The initial information that you'll be receiving on the case review has redacted personal information. So we don't have faces showing, for example, when you'll see some body camera footage coming out to you shortly. And so we've tried to redact as much as possible, but there is a possibility that information could be shared that wouldn't be desired to be outside that. So that's why we moved through that procedure to make sure that you're aware of, in case we need to say, okay, this part would be confidential. And we would let you know if we enter that realm. But so far, we've not.
How would that work though, if we're on YouTube?
Well, yeah. That's a good and fair question. That's a good and fair question. Maybe as I'm saying that, I'm obsolete in my own sentence because, Nathan, I can't remember, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but one of the things you and I will want to know, the executive session in which deliberations can happen during a case review. Do
Yeah,
we
the
pause the
executive
YouTube?
session is not, subject to public.
And so we pause the YouTube.
We would pause.
Thank you. And then that would be the moment where if there is information, that would be the time. Yeah,
That makes
Okay.
sense.
thank you.
For sure.
Sorry, brain's rusty. And we haven't been through that in this era, in this new era with the YouTube. We haven't had a case review and the YouTube experience. That's a new overlay for us. Good question. Okay. Let's see. As you know, complaints come in. Sometimes they come to me, sometimes they come directly to the police department, and we want there to be no wrong door. And so we assist people, try to meet them where they are and assist them. And but we always give the police a first attempt or opportunity to investigate and resolve the issue. You know, they're the ones with the resources to be able to look into the matter and review body camera footage and things. So they take a first try at responding. And as you know, many situations end up resolving at that level. But when a situation is not resolved, if the person is dissatisfied with the response from that review, that's when they can file with you. And that's, of course, what has led us to the case review that we've scheduled. And as you remember from your last meeting, there's criteria where you might reject a case review, but we have one moving forward. Couple of reminders. If we discover that there's pending suit filed or intent to sue, which we pay attention to, then we would pause. And that has happened before. David remembers that. So that's something to pay attention to and be aware of. We don't want to duplicate that process or muddy that process. So if that happens, then we go down that process instead. And a little note about what the board isn't set up for. There's situations that we don't end up having a role in. So you've received the request for the hearing. We went over that at our last meeting. And there was an initial bit of information from the PD at that meeting, but now what you'll receive next is a more complete response from the police department with a more complete summary of their investigation. And in the cases coming up, they've elected to include some redacted body camera videos, for example, so we'll have that to share with you. I was thinking following this orientation, so I thought as early as tomorrow you'll watch for a link from me to that information. And there may also be copies of policy and procedure or things that they'll share as well that might be relevant to the case at hand, or questions that you might have. So that'll come out in advance. And then the hearing process itself, and this might be where you would have gotten an email from me with a mock hearing format. Would you like a copy? Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
But that's, and Nathan, I want to appreciate you for updating this document. And this gives you kind of an experience of the walkthrough of the actual piece. We get a chance to meet the people involved, to hear from the complainant and to hear from the police department their perspectives on the issue. You have an opportunity to ask them questions. What we depend on you, David, for is not getting into a broad free-for-all conversation. Like, we don't have the complainant asking the police questions or the police asking the complainant questions. It's really moving from the board and the board's inquiry to that person. So it's how that's experienced. They're each allowed to bring 2 additional witnesses. So if they wanted to tap other people that may have information to share, that's acceptable too. A note that the officer themselves may not participate, that's a choice for them to make. They can come and they've all been notified. You might remember in our bylaws, there's a process for notifying the officer, and we've done that. And they can attend, or the professional standards unit sergeant might speak for the department or for the officer's experience. That's possible too. All right. David, you had a question that might fit here. If you want to ask your question.
So on here, at one point, we asked one party to leave the room while the other party. Do we still do that with regards to, I mean, they could technically go outside and look at what's going on.
So I believe that the issue is just about preserving the integrity of witness testimony. So it's excluding witnesses that aren't giving statements from that they don't, have a chance to like realign their story to what other people are saying. So that's what happened. Well, each person is stating for the witness. This was just from the bylaws that say, but I don't suppose there's anything stopping them from walking out of the room and going to watching it. But the bylaws say they have to be out of the room. Okay, so that could be a place we could amend.
Yeah.
To bring these into the 21st century.
Yeah.
Just as an idea.
Yeah.
Because those are kind of old.
Yeah, they are.
Changed in 20 years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's, Nathan, thanks for that. I wasn't sure if you know the answer this evening, but that's how we proceed on December 4th. Given the bylaws say to do that, we'll ask people to step out. Yeah.
I guess it does help facilitate, so you don't have a witness try and ask the other person a question. That probably what you talked about earlier.
Good point.
They're out in the room.
And it would prevent maybe arguments as well,
Right.
like or outbursts. Like if you say something like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's not true. Yeah, you would reduce that likelihood, or maybe nonverbal
Mm-hmm.
influence.
Yeah, I believe the complainant gets to hang out the whole time.
Well, I think they've got the complainant stepping out during the police, except that's not how I recall it either. I
No, I
have
think
to.
the complainant stays in for the whole thing. I think they have a right to hear.
Okay. Okay.
It's just a witness.
Was that
It's just
the
witnesses?
just the witness?
Oh, okay.
So there's only a section.
That makes sense. So the complainant and the police stay for the whole time. It's the witnesses that step out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's the board asking the witnesses question, not the complainant, but all the officers, or just the board. And this also, question. Yeah, I'm just, you can go on with. your
Okay, thanks.
presentation.
No, thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
That's
doing this
okay.
for
No,
my
it's
own
interesting. Yeah, thank you.
curiosity and
Yeah, of
just
course.
refresh my brain on this.
I know, me too. Me too. So,
Wait.
yeah, Elizabeth, please go ahead.
Question, will we be able to have a copy of these slides? I'd like to review them a little bit more carefully.
Of course.
Okay,
Let me make a note to send slides copy to you.
thank you.
So you can feel the process, there's introductory remarks. It's kind of a summary of the complaint that's been received, an opportunity to hear from and ask questions of both parties, witnesses. And then there's a conclusion where we close the public portion of the meeting and everybody leaves except the board and Nathan and myself. And then you have the opportunity to deliberate You might discover you have more questions, and then we can come out of the executive session, thank you, and ask more questions. If folks have gone, we'll get them and schedule another time, or they might just be waiting outside for us, and then we can get back to that.
So do we ask them to wait outside or do we ask them what they're excused?
I think we might need to play that by ear. Like if your initial part takes 2 hours,
Yeah.
you might just plan on another meeting and exclude them and come back. Or if it's relatively, if you feel reasonable with the time frame, you might just ask them to wait outside while we deliberate. I think that's a game time decision. Great.
So loop around because we're pitching by right. 20C is section 20, item C is about the bylaws. Okay. So yeah, it says to exclude them and they can't, so that they can't. We can ask them to not pull it up on.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
I say that in the private.
I
No,
know.
I know, that's
Well,
that was just out of my head.
Yeah.
If you give them the idea, exactly.
Because it probably won't be thinking about it if we don't say it.
That's probably not fair.
Very good. And then your essential. Oh, Mel, please go ahead.
Just wanted to know, it says that there's going to be a report written. Who writes the report, the initial report for the board of the decision?
Yeah, thank you. In the past, I've written a draft for the board to review and edit and ultimately vote on. So I listen to your conversation and your direction, and then I come up with something and then share it back at a future meeting and you all edit. But then eventually there's an opportunity for you all to sign. Yeah. And at the beginning of it, it's whether you concur or don't concur, you know, with the professional standards unit determination. There's the potential for a dissenting view, and you can include that as well. If you've got a majority going one direction, but there's somebody who disagrees, we can include that perspective and in the final letter. You might also have recommendations for the police chief and the city manager. You might say, you know, we agree, but we really think more training, or we're wondering if clarification on this procedure could help. It seemed like there was a communication challenge and more procedural clarification, or we think it followed the letter of the law, but we kind of disagree and would suggest exploration of a new policy idea. I mean, those are all potential ideas or recommendations that could come out of a process like that. And then ultimately your letter or report is given to the police chief, the city manager, city council gets a copy. And then decisions about the outcomes of that ultimately do rest with the police chief and city manager. If they want to make any changes, add new procedure, policy, disciplinary action. But you're providing your advice. We have some timelines. Let's invite, all of you are invited to sign the final letter. We give the police chief a period of time to respond before it becomes finalized. And if there's no input from them, then we finalize. There is, once it's finalized, there's the opportunity to share that in the meeting, and the complainant and the police are able to hear that information and receive that information, but it's not written where you take public comment on it or have debate or anything like that. It's just, here's what we're thinking, is how it's set up.
Is this open to the public?
Yeah. All right, that is the PowerPoint. We did kind of weave in some references to the hearing script, but I want to go back to that and just see if you see how that moves through. It provides David some language around kind of how to introduce the subject, how to introduce folks in the room, the prompt to exclude witnesses, the invitation, your request that everybody's true and honest with you. Do questions emerge for you in that, Chris? Do you want to, am I moving through it too quickly? Do you want to kind of read it out loud and pause and see how it feels? We're doing fine on time, so if you'd like to do that, we can certainly do that. Good, okay, you're feeling
I
comfortable?
think fine on time is good for us.
Yeah, good, good, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, it's laid out very nicely, you know, I mean, it's kind of just fill in the blanks.
Yeah, good. We had a former script and Nathan has adapted it and updated it for us, and I appreciate that, Nathan, thank you. Yeah, Grant, you had a question?
Yeah, in regards to the report itself, is that an appropriate use of your time and assistance with the board, or is that something in an ideal world one of us would be able to help with?
Oh, I would welcome it. If anybody says, hey, I'll take a first draft of that report, I would say thank you, and that would be welcome. And I can show you an example of a past one, for example. And
that's what we said, we're not, taking advantage of how well you put all this together and organize it for
I
us.
know,
Thank you.
You're a rock star.
Well, thank you. You all are most kind to me, and I would welcome your help and any volunteer writers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I know we have an HR manager on there. who has a lot of reports.
I'm sure Gretchen knows what she's doing. Quick question, because we do different ways of introducing ourselves. When we introduce ourselves, we're just going to be saying I'm Al Gregg, the member of the Police Review Board. That's it, right? Not just Marion County, Polk County, what do I do, whatever, none of that. How long we've been. The statements from everyone else in the room. We are introducing ourselves, or just David?
Oh, I think the whole board will introduce themselves at the
So,
meeting.
for standardization, just the name and the board member, that's it?
Just name.
What do you think, David? I would say name and that you're a board member, but that's my preference. I don't think there's rules on it. David, do you have a preference?
I do not, whatever the board feels comfortable doing.
Because when we introduce ourselves in this meeting, there's variety of ways we've been doing it. I just want to make sure we do it in one way, all of us.
I think just a name is fine. I mean, because it's a little more official.
Yeah.
I like that, Mel. I like that suggestion.
Yeah. It might help people to know who's on the board and who's not.
Right.
So adding that you're a board member makes
Right.
sense to me, because like staff have a different role,
Right.
witnesses, complainant, police have a different role,
Right.
and they may not be visible to everybody.
I see Aaron. Aaron, are you trying to?
Yeah, sorry. Will we do just first names? We don't have to say our last names.
Oh, you don't have to say your last name.
I was just curious. I mean, just wondering, if we say our first or last names or just our first names.
That's a good question.
Your names are listed as board members
That's
on our website, so that is publicly available information.
okay. No, I was just curious. I don't care. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not saying anything I'm not supposed to say.
First and last name, and that we're board members appropriate.
Okay.
Favorite color if you're feeling fancy.
What'd you say?
That's a favorite color if you really want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I think name and board member is fine because, that way it sounds official, It is official, but it sounds professional, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're agreeing on first and last name. So you might say Gretchen Bennett, board member, and that would be what you do for introduction.
Yeah.
Copy.
That sounds appropriate.
Great.
I do have a question for you. And I'm supposed to ask, do you agree that your statements will be true and honest? And it says, if yes, then I proceed. What did they say no?
I know. That's a
And you
good fair
don't- and you
question.
don't proceed.
Do we
I
stop
mean,
by
if they say no,
end the meeting?
I would call the next witness.
I think you do. You might call for clarification and make sure they understood your question. But Nathan, would you want to weigh in on that? If they're really mocking that, it might lead to.
I mean, I suppose it depends who they are. I would think if this is like the people likely to do this are probably not in the police department.
Right.
Right, what we're thinking now.
Right. So like that would be the sort of thing, this is a pretty novel question. My conjecture would be probably like go on, but just like beyond advisement that
Oh.
they've just broadcast that they might not be telling the truth. And that's just thinking like, you know, I mean, in the real world, people lie all the time. This is what we do. Courts everywhere is try to figure out who's credible and like or not. And so if it's a complainant, and they're like, yeah, I'm not attesting to any of that, but they're still the complainant, let them make their statements.
Or you might, I do like, just ask at least ask it one more time, like to clarify.
Yeah.
Because maybe they didn't quite understand what you were asking, and say, hey, just for point of clarification. And then
Yeah.
reread it, and if they say, no, I can't substantiate what I'm gonna say, it's like, okay, well, we're noted, and then allow them to testify.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, good question.
That'd be fun if that actually came
I
out.
know.
I mean, it would be very interesting, it'd be awkward to be like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, all right.
True.
You.
We are gonna run a hybrid meeting. I've gotten assurance from colleagues that they'll be there to run the tech component. I'm super grateful for that.
Oh, yeah,
So,
nice.
yeah, just to make sure we have assistance. Well, good. And then, yeah, it will be at your discretion. If you are crystal clear and complete everything on December 4th, that's absolutely fine. And then we could just come back at our next meeting with the draft report for your review and finalization. If you take quite a bit of time and you want to adjourn and make another meeting date, we can do that as well. So it's really just up to your discretion on what you might need to accomplish your objective. All right, well, good. I don't have anything else I wanted to be sure to communicate. If there's no other questions, I'm certainly available if questions come up for you or after you receive the police's component. If you have, we don't want you to deliberate outside of a public process, but if you have clarifying process questions, I'm happy to help. Yeah.
Okay,
All right, well, that's all she wrote.
awesome. I'll be looking out for the slides.
Good.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Yeah, I'll send them tonight.
Awesome. I appreciate you.
Of course. Appreciate you too, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You